Welcome to the Deep Dive. So today, we're diving into something, well, maybe a bit uncomfortable for many of us. Silence.
Yeah, actual silence.
Right? Think about it. In our world, it's just
Yeah.
constant noise. Headphones, TV, scrolling. We seem almost driven to fill every single gap. It really makes you wonder, what are we actually running from when we avoid that stillness?
Well, that's the core question, isn't it? And our source for this exploration, it's called The Philosophy of Silence, Finding Truth in Stillness. It digs into this idea that maybe we're not just running from the quiet outside us, but maybe more often it's the silence inside us.
Inside. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, the book suggests that true stillness, it isn't actually empty space, far from it. It's potentially full of things we'd rather not deal with.
Like what?
Things like, regrets we haven't processed, or maybe big questions we keep putting off, our fears, that kind of stuff. It suggests silence sort of strips away all the external noise, all the distractions.
Right.
And what's left is, well, the author calls it unvarnished reality. Your own thoughts, your motivations, the things we usually manage to drown out.
Okay, so the book's saying silence is full of these potentially uncomfortable truths. That sounds challenging, honestly.
It can be, yeah.
Does it suggest we just sort of grit our teeth and sit with that discomfort? Or are there, ways to navigate it?
That's a really important point. The idea isn't really to, wrestle these spots into submission.
Okay.
It's more about observing them, almost like being a detached witness without immediate judgment.
Observing.
Yeah.
The book actually mentions practices like silent journaling.
Silent journaling.
Yeah, where you basically just write down whatever bubbles up. No editing, no reacting, just letting it flow. It's about giving your subconscious, which is usually buried under constant input, a chance to surface things. Unprocessed feelings maybe, or dilemmas you haven't solved.
It's like, turning off the constant background noise and finally hearing what's actually going on in your own head. Exactly. You finally hear the buzzing of your own thoughts, for better or worse.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's striking, isn't it, how different this feels from how, say, ancient thinkers approached it.
Totally different.
You read about figures like the Buddha, sitting under a tree, just sitting in silence. Not running away, but seeking understanding through the quiet.
Right, actively walking into it.
Or Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, saying, nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul.
Such a powerful line.
It really underscores this idea from the book that maybe true wisdom, real insight, it doesn't shout, it whispers. And you can easily miss it if there's too much noise.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, the source really emphasizes that silence isn't passive, it's actually power. It's a strength.
How so?
Well, it trains your mind. It helps you learn to observe instead of just reacting instantly. It helps you think before you speak, basically.
Which is probably useful for most of us.
Definitely. The book gives examples like how even just 10 minutes of intentional quiet can improve impulse control. Not by suppressing thoughts, but by creating that little pause.
A mental pause, right?
Yeah, so you can make a conscious response instead of just a knee-jerk reaction. And maybe even more fundamentally, it reconnects us to the present moment.
The present.
The source points out how constant noise can actually trigger our stress response. Silence, on the other hand, helps reset our nervous system. It shifts us from that fight or flight.
Towards rest and digest, I've heard that. A biological shift.
A subtle one, but yeah, profound.
The idea you mentioned earlier about boredom that resonates. I remember being a kid, truly bored, and suddenly, boom, the most creative games would appear out of nowhere.
Exactly. The source tackles that directly. Our modern fear of boredom.
Yeah, we avoid it like the plague.
But the book suggests boredom isn't the enemy. It's actually maybe a gateway.
A gateway to what?
To awareness. It kind of forces the brain, especially when it's used to constant input, to switch modes from just consuming to creating.
Like hitting reset.
Kind of. Letting your own ideas, your own solutions bubble up without all the external clutter getting in the way. And in stillness, time itself can feel different.
And you mean it slows down?
Not literally, of course. But the book notes that your sensory perception can become heightened. A minute might feel richer, more detailed.
So you experience the present more fully.
Precisely. It suggests the really profound discoveries, the aha moments. They often happen not when we're frantically doing, but when we allow ourselves to simply be.
Wow. So, okay, for someone listening, what's the takeaway? How does this apply day to day?
Well, maybe the next time you feel that urge, that compulsion to fill a quiet moment, waiting in line maybe, or driving without the radio, try pausing just for a second, breathe, and listen to the silence, not as this empty void to be scared of.
But maybe as a mirror.
Exactly. A mirror that might just show you something important, what you've been avoiding perhaps, or maybe just what real clarity feels like.
It leads to a pretty deep question then, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What if real philosophy, real self-understanding, isn't just found stacked in books on a shelf?
But where?
But maybe it's actually found right there, in that quiet space, in stillness, in solitude, where your own soul gets a chance to whisper, this is who I really am.